Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, I would like to welcome you all to today's seminar on Rethink Your Marketing Strategies. Competition is Jewelers and Watchmakers' Biggest Challenge, organized by Female Entrepreneur Worldwide on the occasion of the HKTDC Hong Kong International Jewellery Show 2018. Seminar will be conducted in English with no simultaneous interpretation provided. Please switch off your mobile phone or turn it to vibration mode. The Q&A session will be held at the end of the seminar, so if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Now, without further ado, may I now invite today's moderator and speakers on stage. Ms. Sally Ryder, founder of Ryder Diamonds, and our panelists this morning. Ms. Kiri Sinclair, PR expert and founder of Sinclair Cons, and Ms. Olivia Lee, founder of Closure Magazine.
Hello everyone, my name is Sally Ryder. I am the founder of Ryder Diamonds in Hong Kong. The business was founded in 2005 and we specialize in the art of fine handmade jewelry making, particularly in diamonds and diamond jewelry. Today I will be talking with Olivia Lee and Kiri Sinclair, and we will start the conversation by discussing the fact that the jewelry industry is super competitive and insanely competitive, I should say. What would your advice be for brands to stand out in the crowd? Kiri?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kiri. It's really good to see so many people here today. We work with many brands across jewellery, both on the wholesale side and the retail side. And standing out in a really busy marketplace is about making sure that you're telling your story. What is your brand about? What is it that you want to communicate? And how is it that you actually make a relationship, a connection with the people that you're talking to? And I think that that's the key, that many people get so stuck inside their bubble, they forget that oftentimes your audience doesn't necessarily know the real true cause and value of what your brand is. Also, sometimes perhaps you don't know it. Perhaps you've gone off on a train of thought about a certain piece of jewelry or a collection, and forget that each time you're talking about your brand, you need to bring it back to your core values in some way or form.
Wow, Kiri, that sounds like everything I would say as well. But following what Kiri says, it's absolutely true from a media point of view. Story is essentially what drives this image about what your brand and product is about. So following what Kiri says, with the story, think of it like the trunk of your business. It's really what's holding everything together. Through that, every product will have a story, and it's good to always bring back all of the information around that story, really drive it through and through, because sometimes people don't hear your message the first time around. So choose a product that is the star product, maybe the top of its category, or maybe it's a category you actually created yourself, right? So from there, use it to talk about it, find different ways to reach different target audience, and that's one way to really get your brand above the rest.
So, Kiri, you specialize in PR.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think different brands should approach the media, I guess, in a unique way to really make their brand stand out?
I think that with many brands, there's an approach that is, we need to speak to everyone all the time. And that doesn't work. It's really important for brands to understand who is their audience and what does their audience consume. So in a sense, if you're looking at a brand that is related to perhaps diamonds like yourself, and your audience, oftentimes your buyers are gentlemen, where are they looking? Where are they going to find that information? And you know, when it comes to a man purchasing jewelry, their first thing is usually probably to go to a Google search and say diamond ring, you know, or something like that. But getting in front of the right decision maker is really important. So if we're looking at jewelry that is perhaps more of a designer nature, it's funky, it's to a younger generation, it's trend, it's seasonal, then you're looking towards perhaps the cosmopolitan type publications, where people are looking for something each season to dress up or dress down. So instead of talking to everyone within the media scope, hone in on who you really should be talking to, and then ask them what they're going to be writing about and how you can fit into their story. Because if you're telling a story yourself but the publications are perhaps writing about something else completely, you're not going to find an alignment there. And that's a really important point, is to talk to your media friends, build relationships, make sure you understand what their needs are, and see how you can fit your story to their needs.
And Olivia, a question for you. What do you think the qualities are that all successful jewellery brands have in common?
From the beginning, definitely a good story. Really get to know about the design part, the craftsmanship, maybe key terms about that makes it special. Other ways is finding ways to connect with the readers is also very important. Other thing is they have really good representative, great ambassadors, and their stories is very consistent, and they can always build on it like a good book. You can follow it, and each chapter, it just makes you love the brand more.
How is technology changing the industry? And this is something that Kiri and I talked about earlier, and I think this question is twofold, both in terms of design and manufacturing, and also in terms of marketing. Kiri, can you touch on maybe the marketing side, and then Olivia, can we discuss the manufacturing side later on?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because there's so many dynamics to the answer of that. So if we're just taking the marketing side of it, if you look back just a couple of years, how many of you would have made a really big purchase online? So actually gone online and bought a diamond, a pearl, or so forth, that's say $5,000 US. You know, a few years ago you wouldn't have done that because you wouldn't necessarily trust the payment mechanism. But more and more we're seeing that change. So not only are we seeing brands have their own online stores, they're also going into online department stores. So, you know, recently we've seen Chow Tang Tang, for example, on Tmall. Right? So you're seeing really high-end jewelry brands moving into an area where people are purchasing directly online. Well, how do you talk to your consumer in that way if they're looking through that purchase point of an online department store, let's say? And that's where we can help to drive messaging online using the latest technology. So if you're looking at storytelling, if you're looking at how you can use, let's say, video on Instagram or such, there's those areas as well. Looking at the creativity of jewelry as well, we're seeing many jewelry brands looking at that level of customization. How can they bring that into what they're doing? And that goes back to what you're talking about on the design side. But engaging with your consumers so that they can create something that they, you know, are passionate about. They're using your brand philosophy to create perhaps a design that's a bit more unique to themselves. They can do that online now to some degree, and in years to come that's going to happen, you know, a lot more, I think. And then making sure that they're bringing that through from that customization to the purchase point so that your technology is streamlined on your website and it's strong enough to make sure you're not losing people on the way. So this is happening a lot more in fashion at the moment. So when we're working with clothing brands, for example, we'll see that because you know, they focus so much on the technology side of customizing a dress or what may be. But they might lose the customer because the website isn't built well enough to pull them all the way through easily to the point of purchase. So it's important to remember that when you're looking at technology, you get excited about the latest technology, you get it on your website, you know, you're all ready to go, but have you tested it enough to make sure that your customer's really able to use that technology, but it ends in a purchase? And I think that's something that when we're looking at the design side, we're going to see changing very soon.
What you're saying is all, in the end, you want conversion, right?
Yes,
so all
absolutely.
of us, media and stuff, you're trying to draw in the attention, change someone's mindset, create this desire to have something that you might not even want or need. If you think about it with jewelry, it's really evoking a feeling, right? So all of that is really conversion, which is technology drives in a much faster way. In my point of view, Sally, you were saying about media or is it manufacturing? Did I hear wrong? Media.
Also design, like how is technology changing design of jewelry?
Well, some of the latest ways are like, definitely everyone's really into data now. So something that seems so boring, in high school or something. It's really what's driving the sales and also driving on what we see, how we read it. Because even from a media point of view, we take the time to look at what's being read, how long it's been read. And naturally, for myself, it's an online magazine. So a lot of the stories will have links, it will have pictures, it will be supported by animation or something. So we also look at that and see how the traffic flows through. So from a design point of view, there are always fun ways. So this is another way to engage us as editors of magazines. AR is a huge thing now. So not only do we want to just see it flat, even in a print magazine, in a video, I want to see how this diamond that I'm going to custom make on a website that I chose, or my boyfriend or husband or fiance is choosing, I want to see how it looks on the hand. So that's another technology, just changing the scope. So if you're one of the first to do it, that's excellent, right?
It's going to be huge.
Yeah, that's a really great way, and of course it goes beyond just jewelry, right? So AR is a huge thing.
Yeah, very interesting topic of conversation.
Yeah,
I think it's constantly evolving, isn't it?
Always
technology
changing.
that we have to operate in the industry. Kiri, we all know that social media is so important. We're all sort of focused on, okay, we've got to be on Facebook, we've got to be on Instagram. There's just so much to think about. What do you think the steps are to create a successful social media campaign?
I think step one is to try not to be everywhere. Think about who your audience is, who's your true customer, and how do you engage them? Where are they? Is that customer on Facebook, Instagram? Are they on Instagram stories? Are they perhaps on LinkedIn? Perhaps not so much, unless you're wholesale. But then Weibo, WeChat, how do you get through to that customer? How do you engage with them? So brands that try and be everywhere, unless they have a huge marketing team and lots of resources, often aren't tailoring their messages in the right kinds of way for each individual audience engagement. So number one, think about the platform, which is the right platform. And then once you get on that platform, who's your customer base there? Really, going back to this data point, there's so many points of research that you can look into who is your customer. What do they like? What makes them click? What makes them look? What makes them share? Thinking about usually a form of human engagement makes a difference. So a lot of time we see brands just using images that they've created for press. So for example, that might be a ring on a black background or something like that. But on social media, we don't find that so engaging. What engages people on social media is humanness, is what's their relationship with that piece of jewelry? How are they wearing it? What style are they using it in? And remembering to bring that through when you're storytelling on social media. It's a very different type of engagement. So don't just assume that for social media you can use assets that you already have. You have to make your own social media assets and make sure that they're correct for the platform that you're using. There's a big investment step there, and there's an understanding step there as well. One thing with social media we see is that there are many brands that perhaps are using global images. That doesn't necessarily engage the same way in one country as it would in the other. Social media has to be ultra localized. So perhaps there's a festival in Asia that isn't happening in the UK, for example. So we've just had Chinese New Year. There's going to be a lot of gold. There's going to be a lot of puppy dogs around and so forth. No one in the UK or Italy or such is going to understand why you're putting that in your social media pages, which is why you need to curate pages for local audiences. And I can't stress on that and the importance of that. You're not going to get engagement and you're not going to win unless you're talking to a very localized audience in each target market.
Great. So, Olivia, do you think that press releases are outdated? Yes or no? And if not, I know your answer to this because we discussed this earlier, but if not, how do we make them fresh and innovative?
Okay. In a nutshell, absolutely it's not out of date. We will always need press release from the brand directly, and of course working with the PR agencies like Kiri herself. Very simply, words last longer. If you think about it, everything you go on search engine, you're Googling a word, and you might look at an image as a result of that if there's a specific thing you're looking for. But words last a lot longer, and from the point of view of a jewelry and watch brand, these are your assets. You're the only one that knows the key features, terms, key facts about it that we as consumers or media won't know from just purely images. So definitely words and press release will never go out of date. In other words, other ways how it's delivered has changed a lot. Of course, in this digital era, we are constantly bombarded with words, newsletters, videos, animation, everything is always changing. So how we accept the digital media, that's how you need to get personal. You really need to go back to what Kiri said, get to know the media, the person who's going to be writing it or the person who's going to be assigning it. These are the only ways that you can cut through all of that noise of the bland press release in some ways.
I'd like to add to that if I can. Looking at press releases, I speak to lots of journalists that talk to us about what is the role of the press release today. So the press release is where they get their facts from. It's not where you pitch the story, so perhaps you send it out to media, but you still need to engage with them for them to pick up the story. You're using the press release as a tool for them to get the accuracy right. So let's make sure that in a press release you've got in the local currency, please. Where can they purchase this? Is it an online purchase? What is the link to the exact purchase point? Or is it a shop? Are you retailing through a Lane Crawford or through your own shop? What's the address of your shop? Remember that press release, it's great to have that storytelling. It's great if you have some flowery language about how it came into being or how the designer crafted the piece or so forth. But the most important points are the facts around it. What's it called? What's the price? Where can I get it? High resolution images. Where can I download those high resolution images so you're not emailing them to the inbox of a media who will blacklist you if you do that? Just those really simple things to remember.
Yeah, good point. Kiri, now some jewellery brands have tiny PR and marketing budgets. What would your advice to them be?
Again, it's about curating your audience. So making sure that if you have a small budget, that you're really talking to the people that are going to be interested in what you're doing. We see a lot of brands spending budgets on perhaps an Instagram post that they're not targeting to customers. And so there's a lot of people who would never buy that piece of jewelry or be interested in your brand in any way. Make sure that you're targeting your budgets really accurately on social media. When it comes to PR, use your time. PR is all about how you use your time and how you craft your story. Use it well. Talk to the right type of people. So if you have perhaps a new collection coming out and that collection is aimed at a certain specific target audience, talk to the publications that talk to that target audience. Really make sure that you're pushing through to get a feature rather than just lots of mentions and lots of publications, because that's what's going to aim towards conversion, right? People need to perhaps see your brand in many places. That's great for brand awareness. But where's that conversion point? It's when people start to believe in your brand. They're buying into your storytelling. They're understanding what your reason is, what your value is, what your purpose is, and how it relates back to them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I answered the question.
No, and it actually leads into the next question that I had for Olivia. So, I guess it's really standing out and being very, very focused and targeting who your audience is and really speaking to them. Olivia, how would you define a good email or marketing pitch to yourself? What are the key elements and factors that will captivate you and make you want to know more?
Okay, so, Kiri's really answering a lot and it's leading up to this question definitely. So with the press release, we definitely need it. High resolution, good links, good story. But how do you get my attention? So I do have to say, at the moment, I still have this luxury of slowly curating my stories, really going through the emails. And because my magazine is also at a time where we're trying to really find our target readers, so we need to choose our stories carefully. So I do have the luxury of going through all my emails and finding ones that do speak out to me. So ones that do really have good headlines, it's clear and it's precise, and it has a bit of an action word of some sort of urgency. You can think of it like almost like it is a sales pitch in some sense. You're trying to get someone to write, and Kiri brought up something really good. You don't want to have something that's really just product placement, like a mention here and there, which to me, I might do it because I need a story to fill up today. I might copy and paste, change a few words, but that's not really going to do your brand any good in the long run for conversion. It might get the key facts out and maybe more people will see it, but essentially you want to give me a reason why I might want to call you back, email you, want to meet you, maybe want to find a time to meet the founder who's in town or something, and create a story around it. That itself will amplify your story, your efforts, and it would move a lot better than, say, one post that I probably would copy and paste into my website. And I mean copy and paste in a very general sense. But it wouldn't have that message. It's not talking about your brand. Essentially, it's just a piece of information filling a slot at this time that I need.
Great. Kiri, what do you think of the behavior of decision makers, of consumers in the marketplace today? You mentioned before, people are buying online a lot more now. What are the key things that run through a consumer's head when they're buying jewellery?
So if we're looking at the jewellery target audience, you're looking at people who are buying for themselves and people who are buying for others. So that's two key groups to start with. So people who are buying for themselves, some are buying for perhaps an investment, a long-term signature piece, and other people are buying through the season. So it's something that they need or such.
Well,
and it really does absolutely depend on price. What we find is that at this moment in time, people are still very much using online information as research. So they'll go online and they'll have a look at what's out there, maybe what they want, but the purchase will actually happen in person at a shop or in a one-on-one engagement of some variety. I do believe that that's going to change soon, and especially when technology allows us to engage better with online products. So that idea of what does it look like on me, or how does it feel, or that kind of thing when technology gets us there. But in the meantime, what we do find is that online is about, well, how do you get my attention? How do I find you if I'm specifically looking for you, perhaps if I know your brand? And then how do I then take that to the next level? If we're looking at behaviors on the side of gifting, that there's that gifting that's the, oh God, I need to buy so-and-so a present for dinner tonight, where do I go? Run into a shop and buy something. And then there's that other side, which is celebration. So perhaps the engagement ring, perhaps the 25th anniversary ring, whatever it might be. That's something that tends to be more curated. There's a relationship building there. There's something where I have a feeling towards a purchase I want to make, for my partner, for my mother, wherever, that other person that I'm buying for. I want it to be really special. I want to curate it with you. I want to understand that bespoke nature of your business and how I get involved with that to make what I want. And so there's a huge range of that behavior behind purchasing jewelry. I think that if we're looking at what's here today at the jewellery fair, we're very much looking at ready-made pieces. And then that buyer behavior is going to depend on price range, very much so.
Do you think the marketplace is changing where some stores will only have an online presence? Do you think they're changing the strategies to have a brick and mortar where people can be more engaging personally? Is that shifting?
We're seeing it both ways. We're seeing brick and mortar, brands that are traditionally brick and mortar, moving to online purchase and moving into online department store purchase. And the other way around, we're really seeing only online brands realizing that many people do need to have a form of human interaction to really trust the brand values and really trust the purchase point. And so then that's where we see jewellery pop-ups and such happening. And for smaller bespoke brands, it used to be that there would be perhaps a seasonal, penthouse of a hotel gathering where you get to meet the person and understand more. We're seeing more of a kind of a pop-up behavior in different areas, but it's still important for that buyer. I mean, who here is going to buy an engagement ring for their partner without having an interaction with a human being? Right? I think that percentage is still really small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Now, question for Olivia. You've been a contributor to many international publications. How do you change your pitch when you're approaching the top international publications?
You mean for brands to pitch for international publications?
What are the
right?
key differences?
Well,
when
okay.
pitching
Well, for
different-
one, is depends on where your brand is based, and are you targeting for an international, or you're just a local and you want to work small from that sense. But I guess in this world of digital era, online, it's all kind of cross anyways. For one, for international publication, you do expect from legacy brands that they probably have a very set running schedule. There's a lot of editors, different categories, and they also have maybe like consistent and long-term partnerships with advertisers. From that point of view, there's always a lot of ways to, no, there are difficulties and challenges to get to them if you're a relatively unknown brand. So you might want to start off with something, really try to get to know the person. Always goes back to the same thing, human, like, you know, human to human, you can't really change it. No chatbot's going to change that. So I think from that, if you're able to try to find that person, maybe make a way to connect with them. So of course, creativity, somehow connect with that editor, jewelry editor of this legacy brand, if there is an office in Hong Kong and such. Other ways is you just need to cut through the chase in like your press release. It's harder to reach them. Why? Because lots of these legacy international publications, they might already have a set partnership with a lot of their long-term advertisers. So let's be honest, if you're advertising, you might have a little bit more priority in terms of other placements as well. With international publications, they might have set things that they always write about, like SIHH, that type of thing that they always write about. So that's one area. Comes down to really getting creative, trying to get that first spark to get them to be interested in your brand. So it goes back to, are you one of a kind? Your category, what makes you that unique? Because walking through here, there are lots of things that are unique pieces, I'm sure, but how do you stand out? Really finding a way to cut there, getting to that person to even open your email is essentially the first step.
Yeah, well, Olivia, this leads to my next question is, what do you think the most common mistakes are when people are trying to approach the media?
Yes, let's talk about in two ways. Of course, I go out a lot and I meet a lot of interesting people. So in person, if they find out that I do write a magazine and it happens to be something that they're interested in, sometimes they don't come across as excited. You know, they just say, oh yeah, I have a brand. So already we're making this interaction. You have my time. I'm standing here and I'm gonna give you time, but they might not talk about their brand. If I was to ask more, they don't have the key information. So sometimes it's like they can't name me where the manufacturer is, some of the key elements, some key points that makes it a seller. These are the things that they don't know, and it really is almost unfortunate to hear like, oh, let me give you information later, or let me send it to you later. You do have to send me information later because I need to have the key information in press release, but it would be useful if you actually know it right off the bat. So in a personal level, if you have a chance to talk to somebody, definitely know some of the key facts. Like there's just no excuse for that to not know it. From an emailer point of view, I was telling Sally earlier, not so much like mistakes, but like pet peeves, you know? Sometimes one thing is, it helps if you know my name. You know, I am a small independent magazine, so you can use Olivia rather than Dear Media Friends, but I also understand why that happens. You know, not every PR agency or brand have the luxury of individualizing every email. Good resolution, high resolution, not too many links or upon request is a major pet peeve, like, you know, we'll give you this information upon request. Or if I come back and I email you and I said, oh yeah, upon request, let me find out more, and then you redirect me to your Facebook page or something, like you lost me there along the way, you know? So unless it's something I definitely must be the first and only to write about, and I know I'm gonna have a good outcome from writing about it, I will follow through. Otherwise, if you're not making that effort, you're gonna slowly lose me as well. Yeah.
Good point. Okay, Kiri, for you, how would you help your clients to evaluate the importance of PR and their return on investment?
I think the first step is making sure that people understand what PR is. So an area of PR is media engagement, which is a bit of what we're talking about today. But integrated PR spans that MarCom arena these days. So PR agencies tend to look after the social media aspect of communications, reaching out to media, that level of engagement, as well as many other forms of communications. But getting back to the basics there, it's the storytelling. What is it that we're communicating? What is the positioning of the brand? What's the key messaging? The value of having a consistent, strong key message, it's absolutely so hard to put that into words, but you can see the brands that do it well succeeding and the ones that don't not. When it comes to how do you evaluate PR for a small brand, one way not to evaluate a small brand's PR is number of likes on Facebook. It's not a brand evaluation. It's just how many mates do you have. When you're coming back to evaluation has to be towards a business objective. Is your public relations meeting a business objective? Are you driving sales? Are you driving footfall into your shop? Are you driving clicks to a website to view what you're doing, or engagement in an event, or sharing of a storytelling? Are you actually making it through the line to what your business wants to achieve? Right? So if we're evaluating PR just on communications engagement, it's not necessarily crossing the line of actually helping the business in any way. Larger brands do need that level of brand awareness. They want to know, if I said to you now, what are the top 5 jewelry brands in the world, they want to be in that. And that's where advertising, broad spectrum PR and storytelling comes through.
Yeah, I guess
But,
that's
yeah.
really important, isn't it? Especially for,
Yes.
I guess, young brands to understand
Yes.
that advertising to the big wide world audience probably isn't going to be a good return on investment
Not at the
until you're
beginning,
really well
absolutely
known,
not.
like those big international brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ROI, when it comes to something like, if we're looking merely at media engagement, so as one point in public relations. So with media engagement, you have a client that comes to you and says, well, how many clips did you get? Is that really going to draw the line? Because sometimes one clipping in a really great publication that tells your story well will in the end sell so many more pieces than 1,000 clips across just showing one piece of jewelry rather than telling the brand story in many, many publications. It's that level of storytelling, and if you as a brand are able to give us as PRs your time and your investment in terms of, can we present our media story from the CEO himself? Can we speak with designers? Can we have the craftsmen come into our market and talk to the media about how they handmade a piece of jewelry, or why they come up with a design perspective that they did? That's going to cross the line. That investment, so it's not necessarily terms of an investment of how much you're paying your PR agency, it's the investment of how much time are you giving your PR agency? What assets are you giving them? What access are you giving them? Because if you give us that type of access and that type of investment, what we can bring back to you in terms of ROI is so, so much higher.
Yeah, very interesting. I'd just like to finish off by actually, Olivia, if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and your business and how people can engage with you.
Oh, okay. So myself, as in my magazine, right? So The Closeter is a bi-monthly magazine. It's a digital and interactive magazine based here in Hong Kong. We're on our 14th issue. The magazine, we target readers who are enjoy life in many ways. It is positioned as a fashion lifestyle, and it touches upon the environment as well. I think for a lot of people, including myself, that's why I started the magazine, we've reached a point where we have a lot of excess consumption. We're buying a lot, we're wearing a lot more than we possibly can, and in all honesty, I won't stop. But I can make better decisions. So the magazine is really targeted about living the life as it is, but given a very mindful and conscious option of choosing something that's better for the environment in that way. So our magazine, you can find ways to reach us through email me. You can get my business card after, or on our Facebook or Instagram, and that's actually a really nice way to connect with me too. The thing about that is if you actually email me, and you tell me something that you read or seen in my magazine, that to me, it's a happy thought, right? It makes me happy. It makes me feel like that you've taken the time to read it and see it. And it also tells me that you think your brand will appeal to my readers, and that itself is a nice connection too. So you're not just emailing anyone trying to get somebody to write a story, but really making that connection, you find that there's a good fit. So from that point of view, it's important that you're not using your time carelessly in that case as well.
And Kiri, can you tell us a little bit about your PR agency?
Yeah, absolutely. We're Sinclair. We're an integrated PR agency based here in Hong Kong and in Shanghai. So within the spectrum of jewellery, we work with jewellery brands that are some of the biggest names in globally. And we also work with bespoke jewellers who are creating one-of-a-kind pieces or online, more fashion-led jewellery brands. When we're looking at how we work with brands, we work across media engagements, crafting the storytelling. We work on social media channels, digital channels, so we build websites through to having conversations on Weibo, on WeChat, Instagram, Facebook, and so forth. And we also work across the dimension of events. So that might be that perhaps more on the guerrilla side events, more on the very high level luxury events, through to crafting engagement where we can create an activation alongside our client where we can tell a different type of story. So with one jewelry brand that we've worked with for the last few years, they've taken their craftsmanship into the angle of art. And so we've created bespoke art events, looking at the artistic and craftsmanship behind the jewelry brand to engage with consumers in a different way. So coming in and understanding from the people themselves, the craftsmanship side, perhaps they can have a go at making jewelry, through to the design aspect of where did the idea come from, where did the inspiration come from. So from the PR perspective, we work across a wide range of services. We work pan-Asia, and we work in many different languages. But we also work with our clients to work out what they need. So oftentimes, a client will come to us and say, we need your help with doing WeChat in China. It's like, okay, that's great, but what do you want to achieve? Let's take this conversation back to the beginning and say, what's your business objective? And how about we tell you what strategy through the communication spectrum is going to get you to achieving that business objective. Oftentimes, people make the mistake of thinking that they've seen another brand do something, so they have to do it too. But that other brand might have a different agenda than you do. They might be targeting a different type of person or a different type of purchase behavior. And right across the spectrum of PR and communications, tailoring your own journey and your own story and how you tell that story is the most important aspect of a successful brand.
Yeah, wonderful, great. Well, thank you very much, Olivia and Kiri. And Eric, we'd like to open up to the floor now. Questions?
Thank you for the inspiring and provoking discussion. So we'll now open the floor for any questions. Please feel free to raise your hand and our colleagues will pass the mic to you. Are there any questions from the floor?
I'm not really a part of all of this, but I wanted to know, for a company, well, I have two questions actually. For a wholesale company, how do you go about branding when it's much harder to target your consumer because they have to, reach a retail store before they come to you directly? And also for a company that was established before the times have changed into this digital era, how do you now transition and keep up with the moving technologies and social media when the existing customer base that you have isn't really on these platforms?
Is that a good question for you, Kiri?
Yeah,
Question.
it's an excellent question. I don't necessarily think that B2B PR is harder. I think that retail PR is perceived to be easier because you think that there is, a wide audience and that storytelling is important, but it's just as important in wholesale PR. So when we're looking at wholesale PR, you have a lot less people to talk to. And it really is getting back to that basics of who are you talking to? What are they looking at? What do they need? What are they really buying from you so that you can give them the solution that is required to their needs, right? And how can you communicate that in such a way that they understand that you're easy to work with, that you are going to solve all of their problems? Because in business, really what you're looking for is partners that solve problems at the end of the day. And then tailoring that message towards those people. So, for example, if you are a wholesaler, you're reaching out to businesses in China that perhaps have, are looking to purchase en masse for a department store or a fashion brand or such. WeChat and Weibo, very targeted, can be a good solution for that. And it's not just saying get on WeChat and Weibo. It's about who are you talking to on those platforms and what are you saying. Don't just think that being there and sharing a picture of a piece of jewelry that says, here, buy this, is going to work. It's about, well, how do you sell to someone who is looking for you to be able to supply something that is unique, that's different, that's going to be shipped on time, that's going to arrive there with the right quality checks, that is at the right price, that's tailored to their needs. These are different types of conversations than you're having from the retail space. And if you're looking at jewelry within a B2B atmosphere outside of China, you're perhaps looking at a LinkedIn platform on the social side, but you're also looking at the human touch. Going back to basics, who are those key buyers? Coming to fairs like this, but not just being here, how are you going to present yourself to make sure that you're getting that cut through and that people are stopping by your booth and saying, like, I want to have a conversation with you? That was the first question. Sorry, what was the second?
The second was how to change a company that's basically been built on word of mouth and just going from door to door. That's really how the company was established, and now we're moving towards a new different time, and I want to keep up with the technology, but it's hard to do when your existing customer base isn't there.
I think with legacy brands, it's important to remember that you have a really loyal customer base and that those customers love you. They've been with you a long time, and that they have word of mouth to share as well. Many people, our grandmothers are on social media, so don't forget that. Don't just assume that there's only a certain age group that are using social media, especially when you're looking at the China market. How do you work with the people who have been loyal with you to share your message? Is it through their own stories? Is it a way that you can help them to amplify their own messages? We've worked with some brands that have very strong and loving customer bases and love to share their love for a brand. So how can we go to them and say, hey, we have a publication who would love to talk to you about why you love our brand so much. Perhaps we can help you set up that arrangement so that they can interview you and understand what's important to you. There's ideas like that. But also legacy brands, what's great about them is that you have such a long history to share. And so being able to craft that into a good narrative that you're able to share across your channels. Bring people in who know how to craft that story with you, know how to talk to your founders and explain to them why it's important to share that on new channels, and in new languages and in new countries. And then also talk to your customers. Ask them why they've loved you for so long and tell their stories, right? So new brands don't have that loyal customer base where they can go back to the customer and say, why have you worn this piece for so long? Or why do you keep coming back to us? Whereas you guys do. Use that to your advantage.
I have a question for Olivia. You started your magazine quite recently, right? If you're only up to 14 issues. So it would have been 4 years ago?
Yes.
How did you deal with PR for your media platform? Because you're online only, you're new into a busy media industry, both locally and globally. Media traditionally don't promote media. So how did you do PR for yourself?
The magazine itself, right?
Because initially you don't start with audience, you've got to grow it. How did you do that?
So your question is, how does us as a media get the PR as well, you're saying?
How did you get PR to promote your brand? Because Sinclair are emailing you press releases and you're doing, assuming at the beginning,
that's
free
actually
coverage.
a very good question, and also one of our challenges as well. A little background about the Closeter first, that would help. We started out as a secondhand store because we're promoting conscious living. And from there, it was a new thing. This was about 2.5 years ago. So from that point of view, we were able to do the traditional media. We were able to get press as well. And we also were able to build up that like database of people who really believe in this idea. So essentially we found those kind of readers because our magazine is still about fashion as well, and of course trying to live more consciously, sustainably through vintage shopping and secondhand shopping like that, right? So from there we had a really good database, and then of course the magazine itself is quite different because it is only online, it's interactive. The key is everyone's on their phone, so we make it very mobile responsive. We also put in a different platform, so even if we don't reach you directly, we have other ways, as in other magazine platforms, that we have a presence there, and that's how we get new readers.
What do you mean your presence on other magazines?
So most of our traffic is direct traffic that they come straight into our store, not store, our magazine. But then we're also working towards putting ourselves in different magazine and media free reading platforms and such, and that way it also brings in a new group of readers. But it is a way that I think we still can work with PRs in that sense, that we built this connection with them. And we really do have the luxury in some sense because it's slowly driven in a way. We want to do it organically. There's really no rush in that sense because it's online. We're not restricted by printing schedules, how many copies we must distribute. So that eases us in that sense. So it gives us more of a natural way to build up our readers and also relationships as well.
Thank you. Kiri, this question is for you. And so the market has been rather challenging over the last few years for jewelers, both big brands and smaller brands. So I'm curious to hear, I guess from an expenditure point of view or an investment point of view from both big and small brands, what your experience has been over the past couple of years in terms of what people are investing in. Have they shifted their strategy? And now when it appears that there's an upturn or, the sentiment seems to be slightly more positive, are people coming back and spending more? Are they spending in a different way? I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and if we're looking just at the Hong Kong market, it's been very interesting. We had a period of time where the Hong Kong customer wasn't necessarily purchasing, but bricks and mortar in Hong Kong was very focused on mainland China visitors coming down and purchasing from our shops. And during that period of time, we saw many brands disregard their Hong Kong customer for what was seen as like this easy target market that they could bring into their shop. But then they have to turn back and realize that you need to re-engage your Hong Kong customer or your local customer base because markets like that aren't necessarily sustainable. What we find is that during a downturn, the most important thing is to not stop PR. One thing that you can save money on perhaps is advertising placements on being a bit more streamlined in that area. But if you stop storytelling, it's really hard to get back into it suddenly, right? So you want to make sure you have continuous storytelling, that people feel that you're along the ride with them. Perhaps that storytelling changes a little bit to which pieces you're telling the story on or what side of the business you're telling the story on. So if you're looking at a time when the economy is really good, you're looking at people buying many different things for many different reasons, or they're buying full sets or whatever it might be. Whereas during a season where the economy isn't so great, people still want to be, whether in fashion or whether they're rewarding themselves or whether they're still getting married or whatever it might be, they still want to purchase, they still want to have a relationship with you. And together you can curate that relationship to be perhaps more within a budget, or perhaps looking at more of a tailored experience towards what people are purchasing. We tend to see that through a decline in the economy, what investment goes into marketing, what tends to kind of drop off is perhaps really the big scale events. So doing ultra luxury events for ultra luxury VIP might seem a bit crass when the economy isn't doing so well and people are suffering. During the past few years, it's not necessarily a bad economy so much as a little bit of a downturn. And we are seeing people just being a bit more careful about what they're buying. And therefore, that means that you need to supply them with the information they need to come to you. To, number one, know that your quality is there. Number two, trust. Trust that if they're going to spend their money with you, they're getting what they're paying for. They're getting that value. And that, especially when it comes to trends and so forth, that piece of jewelry or whatnot that they're investing in is going to last them. So they need to trust you that it's not just this season that they can wear it, but they can wear it year on year, that they can enjoy it for many different occasions, whether that be at work, in the evenings and such. You want to help them to understand that investment.
Mary, if I can actually follow on from that question also, I was given some advice by a mentor in the jewellery industry who's a very successful jewellery brand in Hong Kong, was that when there is a downturn, it actually gives you time to invest into your marketing and advertising and thinking about your brand and what to do to turn things around. So it's actually an opportunity, I think, sometimes in a downturn to focus your business back on what your core values are and what your brand stands for and how to communicate that to the world.
Thank you, Sally and Kiri. And Sally, just now when we are having a conversation, I think, speaking about competition, and that was part of the theme today. I mean, you that are a rather niche, smaller brand, so for someone like you, I think it might also be interesting just to hear, how do you then compete with the bigger brands? I mean, essentially you're providing products, I guess, of a similar quality and, build great relationship, I think, with your customers and so on. So as a small brand, then how do you go about that? Because as we all know, in Hong Kong, we've got all the very big international brands that also have a lot of money to invest in big scale advertising, social media campaigns and so on.
I think we can't compete with the bigger brands, of course, because we don't have the kind of marketing budgets that they do. So we have to be a lot smarter about how we use our marketing budget. And this goes back to what Kiri was saying before, is to be very specialized in how you're going to reach that target client. So we're not going to be doing advertising campaigns like the bigger brands do, but we're also being very conscious of how people's buying behaviors are changing. And I think the traditional luxury jewelers, the way that they're selling has to change, because I think people's behavior is changing a lot. And we're trying to take advantage of that behavior by catering to people that want something more personal, that want more human interaction. I think with so much online business and so much mass manufacturing and so much product out there that's all the same, people want something with a point of difference. So we're really trying to compete on a much smaller scale by being very specialized about what we do, by, I think, going against the trend in technologies. And as a business, we're really focusing on the age-old traditions of jewellery making and, using human touch to really tell our story and to engage people with us more. I think we have to be much smarter about how to advertise and market yourself when you do have small PR and marketing budgets.
Thank you. Sorry, due to time limitation, we cannot take any more questions. But feel free to approach our speakers afterwards. So we have come to the end of the seminar, and please be reminded that members of the Female Entrepreneurs Worldwide Association are welcome to join our guided tour later. You may gather at the end of the venue and look for our colleagues with the orange signage of the guided tour signage. So on behalf of Hong Kong Trade Development Council and Female Entrepreneur Worldwide, I would like to thank our guest speakers, Ms. Ryder, Ms. Sinclair, and Ms. Lee, and all of you for joining us today. Later today, there will be another seminar on technology and disruption, a changing jewelry industry, to be held at 4:30 p.m. at meeting room 226-7. You are welcome to join. Wish you a fruitful business at HKTDC Hong Kong International Jewelry Show 2018. Thank you.
Thank you.